Uganda is a thugocracy. There is nothing, there's no word for what's going on in Uganda today other than a disgrace. And it's a barefaced thugocracy that the United States and every civilized nation should condemn. And Bobi Wine's safety, after having won that election, should be paramount in the minds of foreigners, especially foreign donors or those countries that work with Uganda.
In Uganda, the government said the internet shutdown was necessary to prevent misinformation and people using it to abuse and undermine the territorial integrity of Uganda and to protect life and property. And that it was necessary for the government mandated by the Constitution to protect people and to maintain law and order. You are shaking your head. Why so?
It's a joke. I mean, the people who are lighting the fires work for the government. There is no law and order in Museveni's Uganda unless you support Museveni. He defines a citizen as those who work for him. He has no idea of what an actual citizen inside Uganda is if they don't agree with him. These are the ravings of a man who's been in power for 40 years and who's just absolutely attempting to develop a dynasty and pass it on to his kid without any deference to the people of Uganda.
Why do you think there seemed to be a plan for the son of the president to come? You mentioned dynasty here. Do you think that is the plan in Uganda?
Well, do you think this son of the president actually qualifies as a general? Are you kidding me? With his statements made in the last week, he'd have been kicked out of any real army in the world. Closing the internet for property rights. Come on. Closing the internet is a violation of all the international treaties that Uganda and Tanzania have signed. It makes them no better than Iran. It puts them right up there with Iran and North Korea and all those other countries that are shameful murderers of their own people. That's what we're seeing in Africa. We are seeing the return of Idi Amin's type of government. That's what we're seeing. And it is incredible to me that anyone in Uganda watching what's going on today, or for that matter in Tanzania, what's going on to me, can be anything other than critical of the governments who deploy tools and resources that are contrary to every international treaty in order to shut down the voice of the people.
Well, your law firm, AP Partners, came up with a press release a few moments ago calling on the international community to ensure Bobi Wine's protection. But some of his critics are saying that it's neither here nor there, and it's calculated to tarnish the image of Uganda both locally and internationally.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. I don't need to tarnish Uganda's image. They do it for themselves and very well. Just look at the statements that have been made by Museveni's son. I mean, just take a look at what he said, and I can quote this purported general. If he doesn't surrender to the police, we will treat him as a rebel and handle him accordingly. Personally, I'm embarrassed by our record. 22 protesters killed in 1 week is too low. I promise to do better. Are you kidding me? Are you seriously trying to suggest anything I or any other human being could say could harm Uganda's reputation more than the rantings of this man? And remember, it is Uganda's obligation under domestic and international law to protect the lives of their citizens. Look at what this man says. He says, I tell you that the NUP will be removed and extinguished from our land like a bad dream. This man has no idea of what rights and obligations he, in his position, is supposed to respect. He is completely lawless. He is an outside the law operator in a uniform that is ill-fitting anyone who has any claim to rule of law or democracy. The Ugandans have only themselves to blame for a terrible reputation in the international community that is not being assisted by their attempting to hunt down the winner of the last election, Mr. Wine.
But some analysts in Uganda tell me that the statement or X messages posted by the son of the president does not reflect that of the government, and the government, he does not speak for the government, so it should be ignored.
That's a complete joke. If he doesn't, firstly, he's the president's son. Secondly, if the president or the government wants to disclaim this moron, then it's up to them. But they haven't. They've stood by him. It is their obligation. The man wears a uniform. He is, to all intents and purposes, a reflection of the government of Uganda. If they don't like their reflection in the mirror, they should change how they act. And let me tell you, all these analysts you're talking to are in the pay of Museveni, clearly, because when you read the statements this man has made, you have to be kidding me to try to argue that anyone can have any doubt that Uganda is behaving in a completely lawless manner that more befits a rebel militia than allegedly a, quote, government that holds power. It's a shame on Uganda. It's a shame on Africa. The African Union should have intervened already, just like they should have intervened in Tanzania. We have thousands dead in the streets in Tanzania, with the African Union doing nothing. It is a crime against humanity, what happened in Tanzania. And we need, and you know, Bobi Wine has been very cautious to say any protest should be peaceful and within the law. And that needs to be understood. There is no violence, there are no threats coming from Mr. Wine or his political party. All the threats are coming from the son of the president in his ceremonial garb as a general.
Is that why your organization or your law firm is calling on the international community to ensure his protection in Uganda?
Of course, because we have no assurance within Uganda of any part of the country that operates as part of Museveni's operation of taking real responsibility for their behavior.
But some people are suggesting that President Museveni has been very clear and unambiguous that anybody who breaks the law will visit them, and that those who have not broken the law are free to campaign. They campaign, nothing happened to them.
I don't know what you've been looking at in terms of Uganda. The violence in the streets, the constant use of tear gas against peaceful protesters. Where have you been? This has been going on in this election, in the past election. Bobi Wine was tortured to near death years ago. What they did to Mr. Besigye is outrageous. They continue to persecute everyone with the guts to stand up to this absolutely shameful military regime that should have been rid of 20 years ago or more.
But what do you say to some of the critics of the opposition, including Bobi Wine, your clients, that if they know the elections were a sham, if they knew they would be cheated, if they knew the system was rigged against them, why participate in an election in the first place? Because boycotting it will not give it the legitimacy it requires, they argue.
Listen, there is no legitimacy either way. What's important is Bobi Wine, just like Tundu Lissu, attempted to operate within the system that legally exists. They obeyed the law. You don't do your party, those people who support you, any justice when you just fail to participate, and then the government claims legitimacy and argues that you're an outlaw by not participating. You can't win by failing to strongly condemn what happened in Uganda. Whenever, by the way, whenever countries fail, I always get a kick out of people who argue, well, don't show up. Well, tell that to the Russians who decided at the United Nations not to vote and allowed their client state of Libya to be destroyed. When you don't show up, you face terrible consequences. Bobi Wine tried to operate within the system. And what has it gotten him? He's being treated like an outlaw, quote, or a rebel, quote, with 22 of his colleagues in the party already dead, and God knows how many more arrested, detained, and tortured.
Well, some people are arguing that perhaps what has happened requires an international investigation, perhaps by the International Criminal Court. Others are saying it's just being blown out of proportion. Where do you stand on that? Because you're an international lawyer, you're a human rights defender, you've defended a lot of Africans across the board.
Well, I tell you, the International Criminal Court right now, I would hope, given the gravity of the death toll in Tanzania, might operate there. I think right now in Uganda, that one of the terms for their intervention is gravity. And thank God, as of now, we don't have numbers that would require the intervention of the ICC, though it may be appropriate only in that there is no judiciary in Uganda that would ever discipline or give consequences to President Museveni. But you know, you talk about critics and this and that. Very few people publicly lend their names to supporting Museveni when it comes to supporting statements like that of the general that he's only killed 22 and he's sad about it. I mean, these are indefensible comments. And they, you know, I have been in Africa since I was a boy. My first trip in Africa was 50 years ago in Nigeria. And we all expected so much more for the development of the continent. And what we've seen in East Africa is a terrible tragedy. When you look to the great lions of the period that saw independence, you see these great heroes, and then you look at what we're dealing with now in East Africa. It's just a terrible, terrible shame.
Now, in Tanzania, the internet was shut down for days. In Uganda, it was the same. But some people are saying the circumstances are different because in Uganda, the government said the response to violence unleashed by the youths or the Gen Zs to go after people's property was such that they had to respond. And the president said the response of the security agencies or the pushback by the security agencies was proportionate to the violence unleashed by the youths.
It's a joke. I mean, have you watched the violence unleashed by the thugs of Museveni at every campaign stop of Bobi Wine? It's been incredible to watch. And fortunately, there are movies, there are videos of all of the government's misconduct. We have it all on film. So the government is the violent player that has put Uganda in this terrible position. And I hope they come to their senses, provide Bobi safe passage back to be with his family, remove the army that has padlocked his home and with his wife inside the house, and allow normalcy to return so that Mr. Wine and his party can rebuild and properly contest this bogus election.
Lero kandeekanemuko muwulire video yange eno mugitambuze. Bannayuganda, weetegeke essaawa yakubanja buwanguzi pulezidenti watugambira nti kati tugenda ku kkubo. Tugenda ku kkubo kubanga ye pulezidenti Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu kikakasiddwa okuva mu mawanga oba mu ggwanga ery'ewabweru, mu mawanga g'ebweru, nti Museveni wakwata ku Kyagulanyi n'abaako kyamutuusako kyonna, oba n'abaako kyatuusa ku famire ya Kyagulanyi kyonna yonna bagenda kubeera nga basasulira individuale ekitegeeza Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu president waffe omulungi olunaku olw'ejjo okugenda ewa maama we okubeera nga alambula oba amukyalirako ku kabonero akamu kukalaga nti Kyagulanyi yabadde agenze kugamba nnyina amuzaala oba eyamuzaala may her soul rest in peace ne taata may their soul rest in peace yabadde agenze kubabeera ng'abagamba olutalo lwagendamu ekipapula kye bakuntumye kirambika ensonga zino wammanga kirambika nti bajje amagye agali ewa Kyagulanyi makage era tebaddamu yadde kutiisatiisa wa famire yenna oba kubakubira ssimu tebaddamu kubatiisatiisa na kubakwata tebaddamu kubatiisa yadde kukuba ssimu yadde kubasindikira message ezibatiisatiisa Kyagulanyi akole ekintu kyonna kyona kyayagala ekiri mu mateeka bannayuganda sawa yakusituka president waffe that's why ennaku zino tatudde sawa zino Kyagulanyi ali safe Museveni wamukwatirako ebyo bigenze era ekipapula kirambika nti zino ensonga eziri mu kipapula teziri sizakukkaanyaako nedda zakubanga we ziri mu kipapula omanye omuntu okuweereza ekipapula nga mugenda ku negotiatinga ensonga sizaku bane abanyonyola akoowa mbagamba ekipapula kino ekipapula kibakuntumye ensonga ezirimu teziri negotiation nedda zikolerawo nga baziwandiise era balagidde gavumenti ya Museveni ebeerenga ezzaayo ebeerenga eyanukula ebbaluwa eyo eweeyo information ebintu bibadde bakola byonna mu maka ga Kyagulanyi eweeyo kubanga omuntu oba ogenda kukola mission kali abamagye basindika ewa Kyagulanyi eyabatuma eyabawa mission ayina bye yabatuma bakoleyo babaagala mu biwandiike yali abatumye kugenda kukolayo ki era Kyagulanyi wetwogera essaawa zino eno agenda kuvaayo essaawa yonna mu bbanga litali lyawala ku lunaku lw'essimanyi tugende tubanje obuwanguzi bwaffe ssaawa zino kye muba mumanya we are safe as Ugandans era mu bbaluwa muno oba mu kiwandiiko kino kyekasiza bannayuganda nti temweraliikirira bw'abazze okukima mwami Museveni ng'akutte Kyagulanyi oba ng'akutte kwa famire ya Kyagulanyi yenna bw'abazze okukima mwami Museveni ne Muhoozi n'abalala bali mu kabinja ako gwe munnayuganda togenda kubaako wookosebwa bagenda kujja bamulonde nga woonaalonda eggi mu kibbo ng'enkoko emaze okubiika egenzi teriimu n'ojjamu eggi ekitegeeza waba kintu kigenda kutataganya kujja mu ggi eryo ogenda oligyemu olitwale olikube olirye n'olwekyo Museveni bagenda kumujja Museveni ne Muhoozi bagenda kubalonda mu Uganda ng'abalonda amagi mu kisero akati munnayuganda va mu kweraliikirira va mu kutya amaanyi gonna tugenda kubanja buwanguzi bwaffe kuba Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu zira bagamba alina kyafumba oba alina kyabala yabala n'alaba nti we tugenda mu protestive vote bwe tugenda okubanja obuwanguzi bwaffe nga bannayuganda tulina obusungu nga bannayuganda tulina ennyiike nga bannayuganda tulina ekyuliyo ku mutima ekyokutubba akalulu nga tulaba twali tugenda kukozesa violence naye Kyagulanyi yatuwooyawooya n'abeera ng'atukolera mu vidiyo n'agamba wannange ngera sula mukono njagala kulya ku mpuuta wannambooze ne tusekamu yadde tuli mu nnaku n'abeera nga asika tension okuva ng'asika ebirowoozo bya international media zibeere nga zitutunuulidde of course sawa zino buli international media etayogera ku ffe tetulendinga oba etayogera ku ffe eba yakulira wa kubanga ebigenda mu maaso Muhoozi yennyini yeevaayo n'awa ujuzi n'agamba nti twakatta abantu 22 twagala 23 abeere Bobi Wine essaawa zino eno Kyagulanyi kyabadde ebimu ku bibadde alinda kyekino ekimu ku byo abadde alinda ekipapula ng'ekyo kiweebwa mwami Museveni kakati Muhoozi bw'oba obadde otamiira n'okola ebintu eby'ekisiru ng'otamidde Kyagulanyi tugenda genda obanja akalulu omukwateko Ko lunaku lwogenda omukwatako, lunaku lwagenda okusemba okukubira saluti, lunaku lwogenda osemba okulaba uniform gy'oyambala eby'ebibomboola. Ennaku ezigenda okuddako ogenda kuddamu okuzuukuka ng'oli New York. New York togenze kulambula, wabula ng'ogenze kuwera ennema na misango mu International Criminal Court ne kitaawo gye mutusiza ku bannayuganda.